right, we're back for part two of my conversation with Javier Evelyn, CEO of Allergy. Let's get to it. I've seen you on social media, you're very active. Are there like trade shows for this type of thing where you're face to face with people, conferences, that sort of thing?
Yeah, yeah. So it's actually a combination. Prior to COVID, it was like, okay, so hey, pitch competition for food allergy specific companies, right? So I'll make sure, as an example, some hacks include getting onto Twitter, following the folks that have the resources, that are sharing the resources. These could be your VCs, these could be investors, but most times these are going to be your ecosystem leaders, right? Firms and organizations that typically power regions by way of resources, programming, et cetera, and just staying in the loop. And after a while, you kind of get a sense of, okay, this is the category that we fit in from a pitch perspective, right? There may be some other ones. So maybe there's some diversity and inclusion funds we'll go after, right? Or pitch competitions. And sometimes it's just a quick 5 minute pitch opportunity for hardware. So for us, it was a combination of some in persons. But during COVID, and I think that's going to actually I think it's gonna persist moving forward. There's gonna be a lot more of these types of conversations via Zoom. So we've actually done about two, if not three, actual conferences from the same room that I'm in right now, and I believe that that's gonna allow us to even move faster. So I don't have to catch a ticket to go to California or LA, cool places, right, or New York, that is. But ultimately, if I can have 5, 6 meetings in a day versus one, that's a win for us. So for us, it was just making sure we stayed on the pulse. Later on, we found other federal grants, and that's something we're currently exploring at the moment as well.
Yeah, I imagine that is what consumes a lot of time. The
Mhm.
balance has to be filled, obviously, with the creative end of the business. The auto injectable product
Mhm.
is your first product, or is that one of many, or what's the thought going forward with that?
Yeah, so the core product from day one is going to be the auto injector phone case combination. But knowing that there was going to be a longer trajectory towards commercialization, we knew that two things: we can drive and derive value right now via an app. That was really our core skill strengths for the initial founding team. I was hired by a guy back in the day in health insurance who actually helped me from a mobile app development perspective early on. So we have that the lifestyle app that's currently available on iOS and Android. It's a free tool which allows you literally to create profiles for yourself and anyone else that you have access to in the family to make sure whether it's a peanut allergy, whether it's a cheese allergy, milk, etc. We can go through different recipes as well as different grocery store items to get a better sense of what's causing issues and track it in our diary. Right, so that's the core product that was released, and we have another version coming out. But up down the road, we do have a really awesome B2B product that essentially we just took from our lessons just being in the industry as long as we have been, right? So one is ready now. We got one that's going to take some regulatory approval, and we're looking really good for that. And then based upon the excitement, see, so that's really what keeps us going, especially when you have a longer trajectory. You know, we've been supported by pretty much every single one of the top food allergy organizations in the country, and it really just speaks to not the innovation alone, but also about the team. Because you mentioned that it takes a lot to run a small organization. We're pretty nimble. So ultimately, it's all about, for me, time management. So I know that I'm going to carve out some blocks and really go in and say, okay, I'm going to prospect, follow up, et cetera, put on my sales hat again, go through the motions and build up that momentum, right? But at the same token, we still have to hit milestones, and we have limited man and woman power now, right? So for myself, even as a most recently leading on some of the design changes and other elements of the business, it's super fun to me, right? So even though your hands are pretty full, if you really are, if you're really fortunate, if you've really done the research, if you really found a problem that you are really passionate about, you don't really feel like work. You just feel like you're just doing, your more than anything, life's work, more than anything else. And that's what powers us on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's something that I'm starting to see our team to kind of take more ownership over. And that's when you start to feel like you got something
So
special.
you're not only providing that product, but also education to support folks who have these chronic allergies.
Oh, absolutely. And that's really for us, like when you think about like pharma, like if we're going up against the top organizations in the world, their their marketing budget for a month is probably like 10 times more than what we've raised overall over the course of the company. So what's the best way to, I would say, get notoriety and eyes on what we're up to? It goes back to what I mentioned before around relationship building, right? So we know that we have tons of organizations that support us. These are also the same organizations that have access to over 100,000 patients and allergists a pop. So for us, that's a way to organically build that relationship. So once the device comes out, they know there's an app, there's trust, and ultimately the final piece of the puzzle and platform will be for them to acquire the epinephrine auto injector that we're developing on our side.
Yeah, that's such. I'm just thinking back to what you said earlier. The compliance level for people who have these chronic food allergies is really
Mhm.
low. You said it was
Absolutely.
less than 50%. I think was that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, two
What
thirds. And
what do you think is the reason for that? Why do folks not pay attention to this?
well, you know what? I can speak for myself and then expand based upon what I've learned. Because ironically, it was a similar reason. So for me, it was an inconvenience to carry, right? So ultimately, yeah, let's say you had a food allergy reaction in the last year, it's still at the top of mind. But there are some people that maybe have not had a reaction in 10 years, maybe 15 years. But once they
Ah,
have that peanut, if they have not outgrown that, then your guard is down. It's almost like God forbid, you have a fire extinguisher at home, you forget about it, it's in the cut, it expires, you've never had a fire. But if you have a little bit of something that happens, oh my goodness, where is that thing? Running, scrambling, being proactive is what we're trying to do when we think about proactive patient driven design. So when you think about it, form factor wise, our device will look like a battery case. But instead of saving your phone's life, we're all about saving your own life. So you can ultimately go from, hey, C, it's been a long time. We're having lunch right now, brunch, social distance selfie, whatever that looks like. And then we could turn that phone around and say, hey, I think I may have ate something that doesn't agree with me, and go from selfie to injection in under 30 seconds, right? And then also making sure that the right people know about it. And that's what we really, that's the embodiment from our perspective of what proactive patient driven design should be, right? Being there when you need it, but also being in the background. So if there are no issues, my phone case or my auto injector is not going to be a huge conversation starter unless it just needs to be. And it's really that it's the cost used to be one thing, but it's still a challenge to a certain capacity. And quite frankly, that social stigma of walking around with something that makes you feel different. Talking with, or just following the research from some of the leading organizations has proved that out. And as an example, I just got appointed to another board for FACT with 2As, another food allergy organization. As an example, just when you get in front of parents and teenagers, it just validates the exact same reason. So, if anything, it's just a behavioral thing more than anything else, forgetfulness over time. And then those bad habits are just passed on to kids. And heck, sometimes parents just as they're keeping care over their little
mhm.
ones, this happens all the time for dads and even some moms that have the purse at times as well too. So while it is necessary to carry two at minimum, some folks are not carrying one in the first place. And we just want to make sure that we don't care if you're team iPhone or team Android. We want you to be team bring your device with you to save your life at all times. And right now we think we got something special, but um, the one thing that's informed us is our audience, right? So if it's just Javier's opinion of the way things should go, I don't really think we would have made it as far as we have. And one of our core values being mission over ego, meaning that no matter how much I know, there's someone else out there that may be closer to the opportunity. Let's listen, and that's what keeps us learning on a day-to-day basis to make sure we get this right.
So the food allergy organizations are would be your primary customer. Is that
Well,
correct?
to a certain extent, actually. So a lot of the organizations actually, they serve a lot of purposes. One, to educate, to promote the awareness around food allergy, because as you mentioned, growing up, you didn't really hear about it. It's actually one of those new, and we can go have a full hour conversation as to why there's been an increase in food allergies, but it is going up. So the research and funding is just starting to catch up as of the last couple of years, and it still needs a long way to go. So we see that this is a prime opportunity to really do something special in the space. But more than anything else, as it relates to the industry, that's kind of our initial thoughts. And actually, I had 3 Slack messages come up. I know you're recording this, Cecil, and my thought was thrown off completely. Can you repeat the last question? I'm so sorry.
No, no, no. I was asking, and you answered it.
Okay.
Your ideal customer, it
Oh
seems
yeah,
like
I
it's
can.
these food
Yeah,
allergy
yeah.
organizations.
Absolutely. So that, and then on top of that, these are the organizations. So going back to that triangle offense of healthcare, so the patients, the parents, these are the core folks that need to know about your innovation to ask for a prescription. But at the same token, the hospital systems, your doctors, the payers, your insurance companies, it needs to be reimbursable. It needs to be covered. So these are the types of things and decisions leading up. The regulatory choices we make now and the relationships we're building right now with these organizations all lead to a successful outcome. So there's lots of different stakeholders involved, but the allergy organizations are one of the core ones because they kind of tap into all those different areas around the triangle office of healthcare.
All right. So I got a question now for what a lot of folks find that, myself included, difficult to answer. If you
Hmm.
weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you be doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. Um, right now, it just be, I would say more than anything else, I can't see anything else right now at this point. I've been fortunate to be at a place now where it's not a matter of, yeah, you get to dictate your own schedule and stuff like that, but more so, are you really passionate, Javier? When you look in the mirror, are you passionate about solving this problem? And I can authentically say that. But if I had to answer the question, it's all about providing access and opportunities, economic opportunities for folks that typically don't get it.
Mhm.
And I still get a chance to do that through some of the organizations that I'm a part of that I've mentioned before, some that I was a part of, and just by the small opportunities on social media, DMing somebody to help them out, and vice versa. But yeah, giving back and economic empowerment is at the very top of the list, and I believe allergy to that. While we can save lives, that's the goal. It definitely will allow us to do that at scale in terms of improving the community.
Okay. So what do you do when you kick back, man? It's after 5. I'm sure you work long after 5, but when you don't have to work, what are you doing to kick back?
Man, these days because I'm stuck in the house,
I saw you
I'm
running the
catching.
other day, though. I saw you hitting the road.
I haven't hit the road since then, man. So that was a bad optic. I was super tired. I was like, nah, I'm not good at running. But I will say that I've been doing a lot more housework. So as mentioned, we bought a fixer upper. House is in a real good state, but there were a lot of different parts of the house and that really want to work on. For those that don't know, I didn't grow up this way. I was a plastic spoon, not a silver spoon kid. So basically, plastic spoon meaning that I just had those. I had the expectation of those that had the wealth, not thinking I had to learn how to do this stuff. But ultimately, learn how to kind of fix things on my own. One, two, I miss basketball greatly. It's my guilty pleasure. We're sports people, man. So finding ways to kind of scratch that itch, and then just keep it in shape. Trying to, I think that's really good for our mental health. Working, whether it's a bike or whatever it may be, more than anything else. And other than that, cooking and really just trying to make sure that from a ecosystem perspective, I do love that building and making sure others are doing pretty decent and supporting them. Just having those conversations and finding ways to be helpful. But if we had to talk about this conversation, let's say it gets released and things are kind of normal again, it'd be going to play basketball, going to watch basketball, building the company, and listening to the latest in music. So there's a part of me, the kid in me still exists, but ultimately it helps to keep me balanced, to keep doing the work we're doing.
It's funny you mentioned about the fixing up in the house, and you're probably learning, what not to do as you
Oh yeah.
start fixing things. And
Hmm.
I've always judged the level of difficulty of any project by how many trips to the hardware store I have to make, because
That
I
is a
never
bar.
seem to get the right one the first time. You got to go back, get another part. I've started to take pictures of stuff to show the
Hmm.
guys at the store to exactly what I'm trying to do. So to limit my trips.
Very true, man. Very true. And and that's another exercise. I've gotten to a point in life now I can kind of honestly say that Home Depot is one of my favorite places. Lowe's, specifically, these are my favorite places now. Whereas a kid, it was Best Buy. So it's all about building versus consuming these days.
So What's the most important thing as we close here? What's the most important thing that people should know about you and your business?
I guess about myself, more than anything else, it's I'm no special than anyone hearing this. I'm just someone that just locked in. I kind of cancel the noise out. Things that I found that weren't serving me any well from a time perspective, I kind of had to let shake. Sometimes that was difficult, but it was necessary for growth. But for me, it's like never let your ego don't get yeah here it is, like the ego's one hell of a drug. Never get high off your own supply, right? So
Mhm.
as you start to move up the ladder or start to see and feel that success, always know you can get better, always know you can grow and help other individuals. And that's something I'm always reminded of on a day-to-day basis. I've always grown up this way, but still I have to be completely mindful of that. And then other than that, from a company perspective, and is kind of tied into myself, another one of our core values is to adapt and attack. And that's the embodiment of grit, the ability to figure things out, the ability to make sure that we continue to move the needle forward, regardless of whatever circumstances that we're in. And that's how when I reflect on my life, that's in heck, even anyone else in our family, any type of progress we've made is the exact same way. We adapt, we attack, and we figure out. And I think that mentality will allow you to grow, the evergreen mentality. And my last, I will say, quotable, I guess, is I talked about early on in this conversation, just the lessons you have to learn. You learn from the L's, right? Never take the L as a loss, but take it as a lesson. And that allows you to have an evergreen mentality towards growth, towards just becoming your best self. And none of what I've mentioned is easy, and it's still stuff that I struggle with on a day-to-day basis, but at least I'm putting the work in because I have a North Star. Just for anyone listening, just keep on putting the work in. It's not going to be easy, especially during this time. You're probably thinking about, you maybe had some changes in your employment because of what's happened recently, but when you zoom out and think about what's most important, what problems you want to solve and start doing work, um, the clouds start to open up a bit. So stay patient and continue doing the work.
Well, Javier, I appreciate your drive. I appreciate your story and you sharing it, the direction that you're heading. I'm not only looking forward to, I'm expecting great things out of you, and I'm happy that I get to see it and be a part of it to a certain extent. So I congratulate you, and I wish you the best for the future, my man.
No, I appreciate you, man, and I'm always inspired by what you got going on as well, too, man. And I think it's just iron sharpens iron. Honestly, I think that's been the way
Indeed.
we've come up, and I really appreciate the opportunity, man. I'm looking forward to catching up soon and hopefully seeing in person whenever that happens, man.
Yes, yes, yes. I will have to make some time when we can make the time.
Yeah, when we can, man, when we can. But no, man, I really appreciate this, and let's keep it going.
So how do folks reach you or your company if they want to learn more or get involved in what you're doing?
Yeah, so the name of the company is Allergy, Alerje. So you can reach us on social, all the socials except Instagram. It's at Alerje. On Instagram, it's the exact same thing, Alerje with an underscore. Somebody got to that before us. And then from there, you'll see anything we're up to, from pitch competitions to latest in our developments to upcoming panels and things, anything related to the food allergy industry or innovation. Definitely check us out. And I'm always available on LinkedIn to connect personally as well, Javier Evelyn. And yeah, those will be the main ways. And we appreciate any of that support from the bar.
All right. Well, thank you, Javier Evelyn, for being on Cecil's Unknown Achievers.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you, brother. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks for checking out the show. Until next time, I'm Cecil Archbold Jr. for Cecil's Unknown Achievers.